Somebody in Shepherdsville, Kentucky, donated an old piece of paper to their local history museum. It was long and narrow because it had been handed out rolled up like a scroll. It was dated November of 1912, and it was an examination for 13-year-olds. When the Bullitt County History Museum put it online, their website took 455,000 visits in a single month. It ran on national news. People all over the country tried the questions and discovered something uncomfortable about themselves. Here is a real one, word for word. Name and give the capitals of states touching the Ohio River. Not one state, all of them, with capitals. There were 8 subjects on that paper: spelling, reading, arithmetic, grammar, geography, physiology, civil government, and history. And no multiple choice anywhere. Nothing to circle, nothing to guess at. Every answer written out by hand, in ink, and graded by a teacher who read all of it. And there's one thing about this exam that almost every version of this story gets wrong. It's not what the test was, it's what the test was for, and it changes how impressive it actually is. That's at the end. 8 questions from the real paper. See how far you get. Number 1. The Ohio River. Start with the one already mentioned because it sets the tone. Name the states touching the Ohio River and give the capital of each. The answer runs to 6. Kentucky, capital Frankfort. Ohio, capital Columbus. Indiana, Indianapolis. West Virginia, Charleston. Pennsylvania, Harrisburg. And Illinois, Springfield. Notice what that question demands. Not just the geography, the river's whole course through 6 states, but the capitals as well. And notice how many of those capitals are not the famous city, not Louisville, not Cleveland, not Philadelphia, or Chicago. A 13-year-old in a one-room schoolhouse was expected to have all 12 answers in his head at once. Number 2. Locate these places. Locate the following: Mobile, Quebec, Buenos Aires, Liverpool, Honolulu. Mobile is in Alabama, Quebec, Canada, Buenos Aires, Argentina, Liverpool, England, and Honolulu. Here's the detail that dates the paper. Hawaii, which in 1912 was not a state. It wouldn't become one for another 47 years. 5 places on 3 continents, from a child who had almost certainly never left Kentucky. Number 3. The 3 largest states. Name, in order of their size, the 3 largest states in the United States. In 1912, the answer was Texas, California, Montana. That answer is wrong today, and for a reason worth pausing on. Alaska wasn't a state yet. Add Alaska in 1959, and it takes first place by an enormous margin, pushing everything down a rank, which means this question quietly measures something else, whether you know what the country looked like before you were born. Number 4. 5 mountain ranges. Locate the following mountains: Blue Ridge, Himalaya, Andes, Alps, Wasatch. The Blue Ridge runs through the eastern United States, the Himalaya across Asia, the Andes down the western spine of South America, the Alps through Central Europe, and the Wasatch, the one that catches people, runs through Utah along the edge of Salt Lake City. 4 of those 5 are still general knowledge. The 5th is the kind of thing a modern adult reaches for a phone to answer. Number 5. The farm. Now, the arithmetic. And this is where it turns. A man bought a farm for $2,400 and sold it for $2,700. What percent did he gain? The profit is $300. 300 divided by 2,400 gives you 12.5%. The trap is in the wording. It doesn't ask what he made. Anyone can subtract. It asks what percent he gained, which requires knowing that gain is measured against what you paid, not what you sold it for. Get that backwards, and you'll answer 11%, and feel confident about it. No calculator. Pencil and paper. Number 6. The school. A school enrolled 120 pupils. and the number of boys was 2/3 the number of girls. How many of each were enrolled? Try it before the answer. 48 boys and 72 girls. This is algebra dressed in plain clothes. If girls are the whole, boys are 2/3 of that. So together, they make 5/3 of the number of girls. 120 divided by 5 times 3 gives 72 girls. And the rest are boys. A 13-year-old was expected to see that structure without anybody labeling it algebra and to write out the reasoning. Number 7. The rope. How long a rope is required to reach from the top of a building 40 feet high to the ground 30 feet from the base of the building? 50 feet. That's the Pythagorean theorem, arriving without warning and without being named. 40 squared is 1600. 30 squared is 900. Together, 2500. And the square root of that is 50. Notice the exam doesn't say, use the Pythagorean theorem. It describes a rope and a building and leaves the student to recognize a right triangle when they see one. That's a harder skill than the formula, and it's the one that actually transfers to real life. Number 8. The room. This is the question that ends most people, and it's genuinely brutal. Find the cost, at 12.5 cents per square yard, of calsomining the walls of a room 20 feet long, 16 feet wide, and 9 feet high, deducting one door, 8 feet by 4 feet 6 inches, and 2 windows, 5 feet by 3 feet 6 inches each. Calsomining was whitewashing, a chalk-based wash people put on interior walls. Look at what that single question requires. Work out the perimeter of the room, multiply by the height for total wall area. Calculate the door and both windows and subtract them. Convert the whole thing from square feet to square yards. Then multiply by a price given in eighths of a dollar. 5 separate operations, mixed units, fractions of a cent, and one arithmetic slip anywhere ruins the answer. That was one question, out of many, on one subject, out of 8, for a 13-year-old. So here's the correction promised at the start. Nearly every version of this story presents that paper as an ordinary 8th grade graduation test. Proof that a routine 13-year-old in 1912 knew more than a college graduate today. That isn't quite what it was. Students from one-room schools across the county gathered at the courthouse once or twice a year to sit what was called the Common Exam. It was an event. The local newspaper urged children to prepare and told 7th graders it wasn't too early to start, and those who did well could earn a scholarship to attend high school, which in 1912 might mean traveling to another county entirely, in an era before most families had a car. The museum's own curator has said he believes the exam wasn't really about finishing 8th grade at all. It was closer to a college entrance exam of its day, a gateway, sat by students who had prepared specifically for it, with something significant riding on the result. That's a different claim from every farm child knew this. It's still remarkable. It's just remarkable in an honest way. And the museum makes one more point, which deserves repeating because so few people repeat it. On their own website, alongside the exam, they note plainly that it tested things which mattered more then than now, and that it should not be used to compare what students knew then against what they know today. The people who own the document are the ones telling us not to overreach with it. 8 questions, 6 state capitals, 5 mountain ranges, a farm, a schoolroom, a rope, and a whitewashed wall. Some of that knowledge went out of daily use for good reasons. Nobody needs to price calcimine anymore, and the units the arithmetic was built on have largely gone. But the thing underneath it hasn't dated at all. Reading a problem carefully enough to notice what's actually being asked. Percent of cost, not percent of price. A rope that's secretly a triangle. That part still separates people, and no machine has taken it over yet. So, how many did you get? Say the number in the comments, honestly, and say which one caught you out. The room is the usual answer. The farm catches more people than they expect. And if you sat exams like these yourself or your parents did, say what year and where. That's the part worth reading in the comments. If you enjoyed that, there's more on screen now.